Hi, so I just wanted to share my testimony with you guys. Um, in Revelation 12:11 it says, "But they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony." So I just want to share a little bit of my story and hope that you're blessed by it. So to start off with, I was raised in a Catholic family, but my parents sent me and my sister to a Christian school growing up ever since I was like 3. And that was really great because, we had chapel every day, we had Bible class every day, and I learned about God. You know, in like kindergarten or something, we memorized Psalm 23. And so, I was taught a lot about the Bible and the Israelites and a lot of that history. Um, but the denomination was like Southern Baptist, I think. Um, and so there was a lot about, saying prayer to get into heaven and like, praying the sinner's prayer and this and that. Um, and I never really, I don't know, believed that, or we just, they would always say Catholic people go to hell and stuff, and that's what I was raised with. So I always kind of had an aversion to accepting a lot, what they were saying, even though I did believe in God and, uh, I believed in the Bible and all those things, even as a little kid. Um, at this Christian school, too, I believe they would talk about having a relationship with God. Um, that was something they emphasized a lot, too, which was a good thing. But I don't know, I resisted that whole accepting Christ into your heart kind of a thing. Um, I don't know, just, and part of it was also like, I think the hypocrisy and, I don't know, they were very, very strict, which wasn't entirely a bad thing. I mean, teaching us respect and things like that, and we would get paddled there. I never got paddled, but that was something they would do, and I mean, parents knew about it and stuff like that. I mean, there were definitely some things they did right, like, of course we had a dress code. It was a Christian school, so we learned about modesty and things like that. And, even every year around Halloween time, they'd always send out like a flyer talking about how, like, the origins of it and how it's really bad and stuff. Thankfully, my parents were immigrants, and they never liked Halloween, and so we never actually celebrated. We never went trick or treating growing up, which I look back now and I'm so glad we didn't participate in that. Um, but also, yeah. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Um, Kind of like they were just very strict, and they weren't. Some of the teachers weren't always like the nicest, so it wasn't the best witness, I guess. I mean, some teachers were, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. They would always just talk about how Catholic people just went to hell, and it never made sense to me because we still believed in God and Jesus and all of those same things. Um, and growing up we did go to mass, but I don't remember them ever praying to Mary or saints. I mean, I'm sure they do, or they did back in the day, or they still do in other parts of the world and things like that. But that was not my understanding of it, really. Um, but at some point, let's see, we moved to Texas for a little bit, and I went to Christian school there, and that was really awesome because all the people, like all the teachers, the principal, everybody there was so nice. And that was a real, I don't know, just a representation of what Christians could be like. And I hadn't seen that before, and it really did, even though I was only in 4th grade at the time, it really did, witness to me and impact me. I never knew that they could be like that. They weren't so, um, I don't know, it was different. They just seemed like different people. Um, and so then, we eventually moved back. And then we left Texas, we moved back, and then went to that same school for another like year and a half. And at that point, I, was kind of changed, and I was more open to kind of accepting, it's like, their form of Christianity, I guess, like accepting Jesus into your heart and all that kind of stuff. So, when I was in 5th grade, I actually did. I did do that. I accepted it into my heart. I don't know if I was, radically changed at, in 5th grade at 10 years old. Unfortunately, what happened was, my dad was considering sending us to a public school at the time just because, there were more opportunities there, supposedly. I mean, there were like, taking home ec classes and, Spanish and, language and different things that they just didn't have at this Christian school, They just didn't have as much access or resources. And so that was something he considered. He asked my grandparents about it, and they advised him, no, keep them in the Christian school. But my dad ultimately decided to send us to the public school, and years later he said he regretted that. Thankfully it all turned out okay, even though it was kind of I could see how I could have gone down a very different path from being in a public school, from middle school and high school, which is what happened. Thankfully though, even though my dad did send us to a public school starting when I was in like 6th grade up through my senior year of high school, he got a subscription to a Christian magazine for girls. It was called Brio by Focus on the Family, and that was really great because it taught us, it taught me so much about like purity and modesty and reading your Bible and praying and having a relationship with God and things like that. So that was really good, especially because those were some things that I'd kind of heard about a little bit when I was younger, but it was really just expanded on that in more depth. And as you're getting older, you're really just kind of centering those Christian values, and walking in the in that holy path. So I still believed in those tenets, those kind of things, but I really didn't have a chance to go to like a Christian church or like a youth group, because my family was Catholic and there was no way my mom would allow that. So I was still, going to like, mass every week, and what else? We'd go to like the religion class, once a week on a Saturday, kind of a thing, and then eventually, I got confirmed, even though I didn't want any part of that. I didn't consider myself Catholic. I considered myself a born-again Christian, even though I was being influenced a lot by, the world and the culture, the music, my friends. I picked up some of their bad habits. I started to swear a lot. I was had a bad attitude with parents. I was very moody. I think I was somewhat depressed at the time too. And I started to, there's a part of me, I would try and pray as well and read the Bible and really try and have a relationship, when I was in middle school, and it was tough. And there were times where I would talk, just talk away to the Lord, and, I would still kind of wonder, I would still kind of doubt, is he real? I'd start to question that a little bit. But I always was convinced that either it's this or it's nothing. I didn't think it like, it could be Buddhism or Islam or any other religion, but it's either this or it's nothing. That's kind of what I thought at the time. Even though I wasn't 100% sure, I still did kind of believe in that. I was still trying to live that out, even though, there's definitely some hypocrisy on my part there. And then I think when I was in high school, probably like my freshman, 9th, 10th grade, I still tried to do that to some extent, though it was very, I don't know, for whatever reason, it was very hard. I just, to try and be consistent with that, I tried to read the Bible and kind of journal about it or pray, but at that point I had just kind of given up, like, oh, this is too hard, I can't do this. So I kind of started to drift a little bit. I still considered myself a Christian. I still, believed in those things. I still believed in purity and modesty and stuff like that. I wasn't a wild child. Like, I didn't start to go partying or drinking or, doing drugs or anything too crazy, but I still wasn't really honoring the Lord with the way I was living. Because again, I was, swearing, listening to all this worldly music, and again, like having a bad attitude and just being kind of rebellious and disrespectful towards my parents. And I was just being shaped more and more by, the world and its unholy and antichrist, spirit. Starting to wonder. I think there was a lot of people were saying, oh, they were born gay and this like that, and if I couldn't be this way, I would. I was starting to learn a little bit more about that movement around like my senior year, and I was starting to be a little more open, to that. For a long time, I was against it because that's what we are taught in the church. It's what the Bible, that's what Yahweh God says. And even so, I considered myself a Christian at this time when I was in high school, but I don't think I didn't really have a relationship with God, but I still believed in those things. So when I was a sophomore, I knew I really wanted to go to a Christian college, and I had my heart set on one school. I had come across through a search of like Christian colleges when I was a sophomore, and that was kind of my goal ever since I was a sophomore, to go to that college. And I kind of looked at another one out in Seattle, but I kind of wrote it off because I was so liberal out there, and I consider myself so conservative. I was like, I'm not going out there. I'm not going out there. And that, when I was a senior in high school, that was the only college I applied to. I was accepted and everything, and I got a good scholarship. Praise Yahweh, because it was very like a good deal in a sense. Like it just seemed like the right place to go, financially and all that. But let's see, I had my heart set on this school, but when I went to visit it, the campus was really nice and all that, but it didn't feel right in a sense. Like I was kind of going through my phase where I was really proud of my culture and my heritage, and I kind of rejected, being American in a sense, like, oh, I'm not really American. And so the college was it was predominantly Caucasian, and I was like, man, I'd be like the only brown person here. So I was a little like, I didn't see any of the brown people. I was a little nervous, kind of hesitant about that. That might sound kind of ridiculous to some of you, but I mean, I don't know, as a person of color, sometimes that's something you think about and consider. So, I wasn't, crazy about it. When I went to orientation again at this college, I felt that even more strongly. Oh, sorry. A little, even more apprehension, like, oh gosh, what am I doing here? And so I was nervous about that. And then when around school started, they had a couple of days of orientation again, for everybody. And, it was just so strange because of the denomination of the school. It's like, there's, like, all their churches are so interconnected, and it's just very odd, I mean, not odd, it's kind of, they're set up in districts, and there's a lot of stuff between churches, and a lot of people knew each other. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anyone at all except my roommate, and even her I had only met a couple of months ago, and she was very shy. So it was just very lonely, and I hated being there. I thought, what did I get myself into? Why did I decide to come here? Little did I know the plans that that Yahweh God had for me, and the incredible journey that He took me on. Well, really my whole life, but I mean, from that point on to now.